Stratford as a district, there will be more people. I mean, if one looks at just the population forecast by 2050, the council area will have increased its population by 25-30% perhaps. So, growth is going to happen whatever we do. And if you look at some of the urban areas, they haven't got land available to build the necessary housing to meet their growth. So Stratford could come under a pressure not only from what we need to meet our own needs, but what we need to meet other communities' needs. So, for instance, if you looked at what's happening with Redditch, if you look back, that was one of the 20th century new places that was built. They can't meet their employment needs within their district, and part of the core strategy addresses that. So what I hope we will see when the core strategy, 20 years' time has been delivered, and I think that the council will have to more deliver it than they did in the past with local plans, they will actually see a district that's got better transport links, it's got better road networks, it's got better infrastructure, and communities are much more viable, and not least, it'll be much better in terms of broadband structure. And those rural areas that currently don't have that, I would fully anticipate will have a much better broadband system to enable them to be part of the new digital age that we're in. The core strategy is really the framework for how decisions on planning applications are made. Now, the council used to have a local plan, still has a local plan, there's certain safe policies still in place, but the government changed the whole nature. It was actually the previous government looking towards a core strategy. And we've got something called the National Planning Policy Framework, which sets a number of rules concerning how planning applications need to be delivered and judged against. And that including that, the local authority can set its own local policies. There's a third tier as well, which are neighbourhood plans. So local communities can come together and put a plan in place. The aim of the government with the core strategy is to promote sustainable development. It's not to stop development, it's to actually put a framework in that means that development takes place today does not harm future generations to any great degree. And it's so you might get, for instance, the government might say there's a national infrastructure like HS2, something as a council we've decided we don't want. That falls outside the core strategy because that's been dealt with nationally. And what happens there is, in that circumstance, although the council's against it, what we're trying to do is actually work with HS2 Limited to mitigate any harmful effects of HS2 there might be, so there's less impact on the communities impacted. Exactly the same for local development. It's exactly the same. We have a housing requirement that's significantly increased. Under the old regional spatial strategy, development was focused on urban areas. So the only area in the district that really had to have a high proportion of housing was Stratford-upon-Avon, the town. That's probably run its course now. There's not much space left within the town to develop further. So what the council's had to do is to look at the rest of the district. And we are trying to look at it in a way of saying there has to be a mixed approach to that policy. We need to disperse some properties right across the council area, the district. We have to look at the town, the main urban rural settlements, and those are the Shipston, Southam, Ulster, and Wellesbourne and Stratford. Those are the bigger areas, and we have to say there has to be a level of development there. But there also needs to be some development in what we call local service villages, where there are already facilities, so we can build on that. Now that can be helpful in a couple of ways. It can ensure that local facilities stay open, because if more people are using a local shop, the local shop is more likely to remain viable economically. But it can also create some problems for communities who don't want to see a doubling of size of their little village because a developer wishes to put in a settlement there they know can sell houses. And that's a real problem, and the council's tried to address that through its core strategy by limiting the number of properties that might be in those smaller villages with limited facilities. Now, the other big thing that we've had to do is we just couldn't meet the housing numbers that were required by just doing that. So we've had to, as a council, say there needs to be a new settlement. And we've looked at the developer-led areas that they say could be viable and could be delivered during the core strategy period, which goes up to 2031. And the council's decided the most sustainable, but I would probably term it another way, the least worst option is Gaydon Lighthorn Heath. And alongside that, there will be a major development by Jaguar Land Rover, increasing the number of jobs that are there. So what are the council trying to do? What are some of the key facets? Well, there's that distribution of housing, distribution of employment land. We're also trying to look and say where we put housing should be where the jobs are, so that you actually could get some people who don't need to use their cars to get to anywhere. They can walk to work, and that's quite an important concept. But added to that, we want to maintain the integrity of communities. So what we're trying to do is to ensure that there is a separation between different villages and communities, so that developments don't bridge that separation, the physical green separation we normally have, and so you shouldn't get developments going into one. And that's something that I think councillors really hold dear to their hearts, and they're trying to sustain that. Neighbourhood plans will come on and they might say, well, actually, we might be able to take a little bit more development than you as a council have said, and there's something here that's quite good. We want to promote it. We might have a particular industry that we view as the right thing for this area that we could promote a little bit more of. And so that gives an opportunity for local people in their communities to shape their communities going forward.